Last time we looked at Judith Jarvis Thomson's case against mind theory and in favor of body theory. Just to remind you, body theory says that you are your body, that is, you are identical with your body, and therefore you survive just in case your body survives. Put another way, two individuals, A and B, are the same individual if they have the same body, whereas mind theory holds that you are your mind, or some aspect of your mind. And consequently, you survive just in case your mind survives. Put another way, two individuals, A and B, are the same individual just in case they have the same mind, or at least relevantly similar mental features. Thomson raised an objection against mind theory, which we'll look at again in a second. And today we'll look at Parfit, Derek Parfit's attempt to respond to Thomson's objection and the theory that he builds while offering a response. So you can think of Parfit's mind theory as centering on the claim that survival doesn't require identity. And that claim that survival doesn't require identity is going to be crucial in responding to Thomson's objection to mind theory. So let's look at the claim that survival doesn't require identity. Remember, this is the structure of Thomson's objection to mind theory. She says, let's imagine that this person at the bottom, Brown, at some time, has a certain set of mental features, a certain mind. And let's imagine that we destroy Brown's body so that Brown is no longer around at some later time. But before we do that, we kind of copy Brown's mind and stick it in each of two distinct bodies. So we stick Brown's entire mind in Purple's body and Brown's entire mind in Red's body. Consequently, each of them claims to be Brown, remembers what Brown remembered, believes what Brown believed, wants what Brown wanted, and has the personality of Brown. And remember, we did this through some sort of evil scientists performing an operation. So time at the bottom is the pre-operation time when Brown's body and mind are intact. And the time along the top is the post-operation time when Brown's body has been destroyed and the mind of Brown is in these other two bodies. And here's the objection that Thomson raised. She said, look, Brown at the bottom there is, according to mind theory, identical with Purple, since Purple and Brown have the same mental features. And Brown is also identical with Red, since Brown and Red have the same mental features. And according to mind theory, having the same mental features means being the same person. It follows by transitivity of identity that Purple and Red are identical with one another. That is, the person in Purple's body and the person in Red's body are the same person. But of course, they're not the same person. They may be qualitatively the same, but they're not quantitatively the same. They're not numerically identical. They aren't the same particular individual. Okay, so that's the structure of the objection. And Parfit's going to offer a response to this objection. And we can think of Parfit's response as sort of setting the stage by looking at the logical space of possible answers to Thomson's complaint. So here's a question. Where is Brown at this post-op time when you have Brown's mental features in Purple and also Brown's mental features in Red? Well, Parfit says there's exactly three options. These are your choices. There are no others. You can say that Brown did not survive the operation. So Brown is nowhere. He didn't survive at all. That is, when you destroy Brown's body, you thereby destroy Brown. Or maybe because you duplicated Brown's mind twice, you've ensured that Brown did not survive. Or you can say that Brown is in one of these two people, but not the other. So Brown is in Purple's body, but not Red's, or Brown is in Red's body, but not Purple's. Or you can say that Brown has survived as both. So Purple is identical with Brown, and Red is identical with Brown. Let's look at each option. So option 1, Brown doesn't survive. Well, Parfit says the following. Intuitively, it's clear that if we transferred Brown's mentality into just one body, we'd say Brown survived in that body. So imagine, you have a relative who you love very much, who's mentally healthy, but her body is failing her. And before she dies, we copy her mind onto a computer and then use that to upload her mind onto some blank body that we've grown in a lab. she wakes up and she claims to be this person who you love. She acts just like this person whom you love. She says the same things, does the same things, has the same personality, and so on and so forth. It's pretty natural, thinks Parfit, to say that your friend, this person whom you love, has survived. So, says Parfit, if we transferred Brown's mentality into just one body, we would say that Brown has survived in that body. And then Parfit just says this: how could a double success be a failure? If it's true that had we transferred Brown's mentality into Purple's body and Purple's body only, so we didn't do anything with Red, if it's true that that would count as Brown, then the fact that we also copy the mind into Red can't prevent Purple from being Brown. Think of it like this. Reconsider the sort of thought experiment that I just described. There's someone whom you love, and we copy, her body is failing, so we copy her mind right before she dies into a computer, which we then upload immediately into a new body which we've grown in a lab, a sort of blank slate body. And when she wakes up, she claims to be your friend. She says the things your friend would say, says, I survived this operation, wonderful, I'm still here, and my body feels so good, it's not sickly and dying anymore. She says all that. You go on for, a year and hang out with her, and you're having a great time. And then along comes some other body, which says, look, when they copied me into that body that you know, they also copied me into another body and didn't tell you. So there's now two of me. The idea here is, Parfit's idea is, when that second person comes along, you wouldn't say, oh, it turns out I thought the original operation was a success, but it turns out it was a failure, because if you copy someone twice, then it doesn't count as the same person. Even if you had only done it once, it would have counted as the same person. Parfit thinks that's kind of a wild reaction, so he says a double success can't be a failure. A single copy counts as survival, therefore a double copy must count as survival. So the claim that Brown is nowhere and doesn't survive the operation is, says Parfit, implausible. Okay, what about the second claim? That Brown survives in one but not the other. Well, Parfit's idea here is very straightforward. He says if the person in Purple's body and the person in Red's body are exactly mentally similar, that is, they have all of the same mental properties, then each person has equal claim to being Brown. So you can't say one of them is Brown and the other one isn't if they're exactly mentally similar, because again, if they're exactly mentally similar, they each have equal claim to being Brown. So Brown can't survive as only one of the two people. Put another way, if one of the two people is Brown and the other one isn't, then there must be some feature that the one who is Brown has that the other one lacks. But we're just stipulating that these two individuals are qualitatively identical. And since they're qualitatively identical, there is no feature that one of them has that the other lacks. So there's no plausible way to say one of them is Brown and the other one isn't. And that leaves us with just one option, that both of these people are Brown. Now, what's wrong with that? Well, here we run into the transitivity of identity problem we talked about before. If Brown survives in Purple's body, then Brown is identical with the person in Purple's body. And if Brown survives in Red's body, then Brown is identical with the person in Red's body. But the person in Red's body and the person in Purple's body are not the same person. They're distinct individuals. After all, they occupy distinct spatial locations. Therefore, Brown doesn't survive as both the person in Red's body and the person in Purple's body. So it looks like the third option is also off the table. Now, this is a paradox. A paradox is a case where a series of beliefs that you have either reason to believe are true or reason to believe are false are, well, a paradox is a case where one of two things holds. Either you have a sequence of claims, each of which you have strong reason to believe is true, but they're mutually inconsistent, so they can't all be true. Or you have a sequence of claims, each of which you have strong reason to believe is false, but they're mutually exhaustive. At least one of them must be true. This is the latter kind of paradox. We have three claims: that Brown doesn't survive at all, that Brown survives as just one of the two, and that Brown survives as both. These are mutually exhaustive. That is, at least one of them must be true. And yet we have strong reason to believe that each of them is false. So something has to give, something has gone wrong. So as I said, one of these must be true, but we have very good reason to reject each. So what can we do? Well, resolving the paradox requires showing us how, despite appearances to the contrary, one of these three is plausible. So to resolve the paradox, you have to pick one of these and say, here's the case against it, but that case didn't work nearly as well as we thought. In fact, this is the right answer. And we're going to stop this segment there. I want you to sort of think about how you might try and resolve this paradox. And then we'll continue next time by looking at how Parfit does.